What he had was an army that he organized of people who got out the vote for Obama, for what the press calls brand Obama. They essentially agree with the advertisers. It's brand Obama that his army was mobilized to bring into office. They regard that as a good thing, and accepting the Lippmann conception of democracy. The ignorant and meddlesome outsiders are supposed to do what they're told and then go home. The Wall Street Journal, at the opposite end of the spectrum, also had an article about the same thing, roughly the same time. It talked about this tremendous grassroots army that had been developed, which is now waiting for instructions. So what should they do next to press forward Obama's agenda, whatever that is? But whatever it is, the army is supposed to be out there taking instructions and press for it. Los Angeles Times had similar articles, and there are others. What they don't seem to realize is that what they're describing, the ideal that they're describing, is dictatorship, not democracy. Democracy, at least, you know, not in the Lippmann sense, the approved, I pick him out because he's so famous, but it's a standard position. But in the sense of, say, much of the South, where mass popular movements develop programs, organize to take part in elections, but that's one part of an ongoing process, and bring somebody from their own ranks to implement the programs that they develop. And if the person doesn't, they're out. Okay, that's another kind of democracy. So it's up to us to choose which kind of democracy we want, and again, that'll determine what comes next. Well, what can we anticipate if the popular army, the grassroots army, decides to accept the function of spectators of action rather than participants? There's two kinds of evidence. There's rhetoric and there's action. The rhetoric, we know, it's very uplifting, change, hope, and so on. Change was kind of reflexive. Any party manager this year who read the polls, including the ones I cited, would instantly conclude that our theme in the election has to be change, because people hate what's going on for good reasons. So the theme is change. And in fact, both parties, for both of them, the theme was change, you know, break from the past, none of the old politics, new things are going to happen. The Obama campaign did it better, so they won the marketing award, not the McCain campaign. Notice, incidentally, on the side, that the institutions that run the elections, the public relations industry, advertisers, they have a role. Their major role is commercial advertising. I mean, selling a candidate is a kind of a side role. In commercial advertising, as everybody knows, everybody who's ever, say, looked at a television program, the advertising is not intended to provide information about the product, right? I mean, I don't have to go on about that, it's obvious. The point of the advertising is to delude people with imagery and, tales of a football player, or a sexy actress who, drives to the moon in a car or something like that. But it's certainly not to inform people. In fact, it's to keep people uninformed. The goal of advertising is to create uninformed consumers who will make irrational choices. Those of you who've suffered through an economics course know that markets are supposed to be based on informed consumers making rational choices. But industry spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year to undermine markets and to ensure that you get uninformed consumers making irrational choices. And when they turn to selling a candidate, they do the same thing. They want uninformed consumers, uninformed voters, to make irrational choices based on the success of illusion, slander, invective, body language, or whatever else is supposed to be significant. So you undermine democracy pretty much the same way you undermine markets. That's the nature of an election when it's run by the business world. And you'd expect it to be like that. There should be no surprise there. And it should also turn out that the elected candidate doesn't have any debts. So you can follow a brand Obama can be whatever they decide it to be, not what the population decides that it should be, as in the South, let's say. I might say on the side that this may be an actual instance of the familiar and usually vacuous slogan about clash of civilizations. Maybe there really is one, but not the kind that is usually touted. So let's go back to the evidence that we have, rhetoric and actions. Rhetoric, we know. What are the actions? Well, so far, the major actions are selection of, in fact, the only actions are selection of personnel to implement brand Obama. The first choice was the vice president, Joe Biden, one of the strongest supporters of the war in Iraq in the Senate. Long-time Washington insider, rarely deviates from the party vote. In the cases where he does deviate are not very uplifting. So he did break from the party in voting for a Senate resolution that prevented people from getting rid of their debts by individuals, that is, from getting rid of their debts by going into bankruptcy. It's a blow against poor people who are caught in this immense debt that's a large part of the basis for the economy these days. But usually he's a kind of straight party liner, votes with the Democrats on the sort of ultra-nationalist side. The choice of Biden must have been a conscious attempt to show contempt for the base of people who were voting for Obama and were organizing for him as an anti-war candidate. Well, the first post-election appointment was for chief of staff, which is a crucial appointment, determines a large part of the president's agenda. That was Rahm Emanuel, one of the strongest supporters of the war in Iraq in the House. In fact, he was the only member of the Illinois delegation who voted for Bush's effective declaration of war. And again, a longtime Washington insider. Also one of the leading recipients in Congress of funding from the financial institutions and hedge funds and so on. He himself was an investment banker. That's his background. So that's the chief of staff. The next group of appointments were the main problem that the primary issue that the government's going to have to face is what to do about the financial crisis. Obama's choices to more or less run this were Robert Rubin and Larry Summers from the Clinton Secretaries of Treasury under Clinton. They are among the people who are substantially responsible for the crisis. Actually, one leading economist, one of the few economists who's been right all along in predicting what's happening, Dean Baker, pointed out that selecting them is like selecting Osama bin Laden to run the war on terror. Yeah, I'll finish. So this saves me the problem